Welcome to Sunday School for CEOs, where your next level in business starts with a mind aligned with God as boss. I'm Jenny Bittner, ordained spiritual minister and business leader of over 20 years. I have chased the titles, the money, the recognition, only to realize that the real pursuit is in experiencing mind miracles every day. And this podcast is here to show you how. This is real life, real stories, and real shifts from fear to love. So let's dive in. Okay, so let me pull up a couple really great questions from clients asking how to move some of their recent business challenges into a space of experiencing miracles. All right, so here is the first question that came in for me today. My question challenge is how to differentiate between the messages or directions you receive from God or higher self versus directions or thoughts that come from the mind. And what I believe she's referring to is the ego. So I'll just refer to it as that. And how to cancel the outside noise to hear God's nudges. I resonate fully with what some of the other ladies have said, and so many times something shows up for me, but I wonder if that comes from fear for the need for abundance or money, and I'm trying about everything that comes my direction, or because it is for me and part of my next steps on my path. Okay, this is a very important and very sincere question because almost everyone on a spiritual path will at some point come to this discernment. And the thing and the truth is that the ego's voice and the Holy Spirit's voice can both seem very convincing, especially when fear, urgency, scarcity, uncertainty, these things are activated for us. But the Course teaches us that the difference is not really in the words that we're using, right? Just like the words themselves, as much as it is the energy and the effect that it carries within us. And so I'll give you an example. I recently just taught my 10 and 5-year-olds this exact example where I said, listen, when it comes to communication, right? I actually pulled up a study online and I said, when it comes to communication, 55% of communication is felt through the body language and facial expressions. 38% is felt through the tone of voice. And 7%, I believe these were the numbers. And if I'm wrong and someone just added those up, we're close, okay? 7% comes from the actual spoken word itself. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because when it comes to us discerning between the ego's voice and the Holy Spirit's voice, it's not necessarily always just the words, it's actually the energy it carries. Just like our body language and our facial expressions are going to carry an energy, a frequency about it that actually tells us what that person is feeling right now without them saying a single word. The tone of voice, right? So I was actually teaching my daughters this because I was trying to explain my 10-year-old's entering this like new developmental phase. And she is definitely changing her tone of voice with her parents. And, we're listening to her tone of voice and we're like, girl, you got some sass happening here, okay? And I wanted to teach Paisley that her tone of voice is accounting for 38% of her communication. So it doesn't even matter what words are coming out of her mouth. As soon as that tone is attached to the words, it feels completely different in my body. So if you're just like, hey, mom, those are words, but the tone, hey, mom, makes me want to connect with you. Yeah, like, yeah, babe, what's going on? Right. But if she's like, hey, mom, same words, the tone is different. It creates anxiety in my body. it creates a frustration and irritation like, hello, why are you talking to me like that? Very disrespectful, right? So, this is where I want you to understand that the ego's voice and the Holy Spirit's voice, it's similar in that sense that it's actually a frequency that both of those carry in how we can discern which one is in the driver's seat right now. So, this discernment is really a process of deepening trust. It's not being perfect every single time. It's us actually being able to start discerning between those nudges, between those voices, right? So the ego is going to make us think, if I choose wrong, everything will fall apart. If I was wrong, this is going to be awful, right? So fear itself is the clearest sign that the ego is leading this conversation. Holy Spirit, its guidance may stretch you and it may challenge you and it might invite growth for you, but underneath there is this quiet sense of openness, of steadiness, of spaciousness, of peace. Whereas you'll start learning that the ego's voice, it's very urgent, very pressured, very fearful, very chaotic, very grasping, very obsessed with outcomes. So, again, for example, you may hear the ego's voice and it may be like, you need to figure this out immediately. You're going to miss your chance. You better say yes. You won't have enough. What if this is your only opportunity? And Holy Spirit is saying, you are safe. You are guided. What is truly meant for you cannot be lost. There is no punishment for taking time to listen, to get the message. So the ego is looking for how it's going to feel safe, where the spirit invites trust even before that certainty is present. So just remember that it's not that God's guidance is unclear for us. It's just that fear is really, really loud. So, a powerful practice for you isn't necessarily trying to silence all that outside noise that you may be hearing and experiencing, but it's really just about, can I be willing to pause before reacting so that I can start listening and paying attention to the actual parts of the discernment that I should be, picking up right now, right? So we can ask ourselves questions like this. Does this choice expand me? Does this choice contract me? Am I moving from trust, or am I feeling fear? Am I feeling lack? These are questions that'll help us to discern what part of me am I really tapping into, right? So another question, even just based on this example, based on this question that was asked, is you can ask yourself, if money and fear were removed from this equation, would this still feel aligned for me? Because fear will always rush you, but love allows time. And if you feel uncertain, that's still okay. We're learning. We don't have to become a perfect receiver of guidance overnight. So sometimes that discernment becomes clearer after we stop demanding immediate response and we give ourselves that gentle willingness, right? Holy Spirit, I may not be clear yet, but I am willing to be shown. So just show me. Show me. You know my talents. You know my highest truth. You know the highest path. You take me there, and I will be a good steward of your guidance. Now, even if we make choices from fear and we listen to that ego's voice, or we have followed the ego's direction, the Holy Spirit can still use all of this as learning, as healing, as our classroom. You are not one decision, one wrong decision away from like totally losing your path, right? It's not like one time you listen to the ego and everything falls apart and you're not going to receive any more good nudges, you know? It's you're okay. You are safe. You are safe. And there's continuous opportunities for lessons. Okay, so here is our next question. My question is how to create the clarity to choose from so many options moving forward. Closing off those options feels like cutting off an arm in some cases because I love them all, but I'm realizing that if I really want to be successful, I either have to find a way to just focus on a theme or pick one with a minimum time frame. At the same time, there's a job that's opened up that I think would be right up my alley, but it's full time. And in a way, it feels like moving into a past life. And it would take away from the time I have to do all these other things. God guidance is a real thing, and I feel it. But sometimes it's like any one of these would be a great pick. Ugh. Okay. So this is such a beautiful example of what happens when someone is no longer choosing between a good and bad situation, but between genuinely meaningful possibilities. This can actually feel harder sometimes because there's no obvious wrong answer to eliminate. So, what I want to talk about with this question here is the conversation around confusion, because confusion often comes not from the options themselves, but from the pressure that the ego places on that decision, right? So, what if I choose wrong? What if I miss my real purpose? What if closing one door means I'm losing part of myself? So, the ego tends to treat decisions as these irreversible things that are going to happen and absolutely blow up our world, right? You must pick perfectly or you'll lose something, and you'll never be able to go back, and this is it, this is the one big decision. So Holy Spirit reminds us our purpose, it's not trapped inside of one form. Okay, because here our world works where we have context which is split between every single thing that we do in this lifetime is split between fear and love. Those are the two contexts. So everything we do is either coming and being delivered and expressed through fear, or it's being delivered and expressed through love. That is it. It is one of those two contexts. Now, these can happen in a billion different forms, so many different ways, right? So, what Spirit wants to remind you of is that you are not trapped inside of just one single form, one way that it's possible, one career, one project, one timeline. Love can extend through so many different paths. There's not just one single way that this is possible, that it's possible for you to feel a highest level of joy and peace of mind and abundance. So, this client's question to me sounds less like a lack of guidance, like less like a lack of God giving very clear guidance. It just sounds like that there's an abundance of possibilities. And sometimes the mind can interpret abundance like pressure, because now we have all of these things we need to consider. How do we choose one? All of these things that we need to think about. How do we know which one is the path that we're supposed to take? And then there's a fear that comes up around choosing or saying yes to one thing. And then that means that we're betraying or losing all the other things. But I want to remind you that your value, your purpose, your creativity are not confined to a single form. You are not being born into this world on a goose chase, on a treasure hunt, on a scavenger hunt to discover that one perfect life path that's hidden somewhere out there. So it's possible that God is saying to you, "Hey, this which one of these choices feels most aligned for the season of the life that you're in right now?" It's not sounding like this is the only right choice. It's just sounding which one of these feel like the most aligned choice for you in this season of your life, right? The ego wants certainty for the future. The spirit just guides one step at a time, one step at a time. And sometimes that most loving thing is not trying to keep every possibility alive indefinitely. It's just allowing yourself to choose something fully for now without making it mean forever. I can tell you this has been the most liberating thing for me to learn. I always think that if I start something, I have to finish it and I have to run with it for the rest of my life. And how do I give it up? People won't trust me. Like if I put out all these options, all these different pathways, but that's not the truth, right? So this client mentioned in her question that closing options, let me read it exactly as it was. So closing off options can feel like cutting off an arm. So the even just the image of that is very revealing. It suggests that part of the fear may be rooted in believing that your identity exists within all of these possibilities at the same time. But that's the whole entire point. Choosing to focus on something right now doesn't erase other parts of you. It just gives your energy somewhere to land and deepen right now. So, for the full time job, ask yourself, does this opportunity feel like alignment, expansion, support? Or does it feel like you're retreating into safety because uncertainty feels uncomfortable right now? And again, this isn't a place for you to judge yourself, it's just for you to have honest awareness. Sometimes taking a grounded, supportive opportunity, like a full-time work that can be predictable, sometimes that is guided. Sometimes that is guided. It is the right thing to do, but also sometimes the ego can use security to pull us away from a deeper calling we already know is unfolding. And the answer becomes clear when you remove that pressure that right now you feel like you're being forced to make this lifelong decision because you don't need to solve your entire future today. So we're not asking, what should I do with my entire life? We are asking, what feels the most alive, the most peaceful, the most aligned for this next season in my life? And then trust that clarity that moves through. Trust what comes up and the questions that emerge for you and the guidance that emerges for you. And then you're looking for what feels light. What feels light? What feels, because what's light is right. What's heavy is from the ego. Going back to the feeling that this communication gives in our body. Going back to, there's a feeling that happens not just from the words that are downloading in, but a feeling that happens in our body, just like tone of voice gives off a feeling. Also, when we hear the ego's voice and we hear our higher mind or God's voice and we hear spirit's voice, which It's like those are two very different things, and each one of them will give us a feeling. And it's the feeling that we're looking out for because the feeling is an indication of where this is coming from. Is it coming from love or is it coming from fear? So, if this episode spoke to you, it was meant for you. Stay close, subscribe, and I will keep bringing you these mind miracles. We'll chat on the next episode. Goodbye.